with our church. Help us to stay strong in your word. Father, help us to grow stronger, closer together. And as plans are being made for our celebration of our 70th year service here at Center Street, we're just praying for success. Help us tonight. Be what we should be, what we can be, what we ought to be. And help us to grow, be strong, and to encourage someone else. We pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you, Rick. Brian sent me a text last Wednesday, and he says, "Hey, I've got to go to Billy's graduation." That's where he's at. He's in California, going to watch Billy graduate. And he says, "Can you teach my class?" This was about 10 o'clock in the morning. About 4:30, I finally responded to him because I had to think about that. I've never taught an adult class in all the years I've been here. Like I said, I've taught 4th, 5th, 6th grade quite a bit, but I've never taught an adult class. So
next time it'll be the second one.
yeah, next time it'll be number 2, and we'll be rolling from there. But I even wrote stuff down, which I don't always do in my 4th and 5th grade class. I wrote stuff down so it wouldn't sound like it was just random thoughts by Brent up here. But it may get that way, so if I do, y'all just throw up your hands and we'll get back on track. He didn't tell me what the subject was. He just said, when he's going to send it to me, he goes, "Oh, you'll have no problem with this one." He goes, "It'll be right up your alley." And so when I got it, the title of the lesson is "Wrong is Wrong." And I didn't really know how to take that, but he said, you'll do fine with this one. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, we're talking about wrong is wrong. I'm not sure in this book, does everybody have a book, or is it just him going through the book? Just him kind of teaching out of it, but nobody, okay. So nobody's read ahead, so I can just make up whatever I want. Y'all just got to swallow it and move on. All right. Very good. I like that better. We're going to talk about ethics. Everybody here have a fairly good grasp on what ethics are? I kind of did, but I thought I'd look it up anyways. Ethics was defined as moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. Another version said, the branch of knowledge that deals with moral principles. Moral principles that govern a person's behavior. In your life, there are things that help you develop your ethics. Give me some examples of what you've had in your life that helps you develop your ethics, whether it be teachers or whatever.
Parents are always first.
Parents? Absolutely. Anything else? Teachers? Bible class? Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Certain professions have ethics requirements. Certain professions have ethics requirements.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're a doctor or lawyer or things like that, absolutely.
I'm not so sure about lawyers, but
The theory is they have them, Lynn. So, yeah. Grandparents, big ones there. Yeah. Hopefully the Bible, like we said, we have Bible teachers, so the Bible teaches it. One of the things that we're going to specifically talk about tonight is situational ethics. Okay? I think that we all, at times, have been, affected by situational ethics. Does anybody know what I'm talking about when I say situational ethics? What you do based on the situation you're in? Have anybody here ever been affected by that? I have. So, situational ethics. They defined it as, well, let's back up. Let's back up. This book talks about everything in this world that goes on. The things that we perceive as good and bad and all of that. Why do rotten people have good things happen for them? and seem to prosper. You know, why do the Razorbacks lose every year? You know, all these things that we go on in this world and we see happening and all this stuff, and we wonder why these things happen, why those things happen. Then it talked about you as a human. You know, we're baffled by all these things, but the most baffling thing in this world that this writer comes across is the fact that you and I, as a person, as an imperfect, sinful person, feels that we can dictate what would be right and wrong. Hence bringing about situational ethics. You, as a person, are imperfect. Correct? I think we all are. We're imperfect people. So the most baffling thing was that how we could have the audacity to think that we could decide something could be right or wrong. Without a set of absolute standards, we're making these decisions. If you've ever been to my house, I have a large yard. There's been a lot of wiffle ball games played out in my yard. We've had, the Van Lands have been over there several times. The most controversial ones are the ones when the boys are just out there. Just Whit and Owen, sometimes Jacob. But if you put Whit and Owen out there, you will see the greatest situation of situational ethics in your life. It is an ever-changing set of rules. You know, Whit's got 6-run rule. He can't go more than 6 runs. Owen, all of a sudden, he wants 4 strikes. You know, I mean, it goes on and on and on. And as the game goes, and one person's down and one person's up, the rules change. It's the most perfect set of situational ethics I've ever seen. And it's one of those things that quite oftentimes gets into the screaming match. While we're inside with the windows down and the air blowing, we still have to go outside so that the rest of the neighbors don't come over and think somebody's going to kill somebody. But that's what I'm talking about when I talk about situational ethics. Things that you change as a person because of the situation you're in. So we're clear on that. Okay. With situational ethics, the intention, the situation, not a set of absolute standards, dictates our moral response. Imagine if all of our life was that way. The situation dictated all the rules. Your bank, for instance. Imagine if that's how they kept the books. You know? Imagine if you go to work and everything's different. There's no standard of what time you get there. You know, there's no standard on the task that you have to perform. There's no nothing. There's no guidance. There's no nothing. No general set of rules. You just go. Can you imagine the chaos that would be without a standard set of rules? And this whole chapter is about this one thing, and how we have to have this standard set of rules. He goes into talking about Einstein's theory of relativity. Is everybody familiar with that? All right, I'm the only one that had to read about it? Okay. I've heard of it, but yeah, I had to read about it, what it was. And even though I had a basic concept of it, what I didn't realize was that in that time, in that era, when he came up with that, it sparked an entire controversy that set our country on an entirely different path. Relativity. Okay? And basically, he was interviewed and he was asked what his theory of relativity had to do with religion. Interesting enough question. He said relativity has nothing to do with religion. Einstein is a man that believes in absolutes. But they took his theory of relativity and they changed it as relativism, and that's how we got a set of moral standards that are ever changing, if you see what I mean. Einstein didn't believe in it. He was not happy with the way that they changed his theory to suit the way we do things in America. But ironically, that's what happened, according to this. I wasn't there, I don't know. I know where we're at today, but I don't know how that changes. But he says, relativity is purely scientific and has nothing to do with religion. But it's set on this path, this theory, that you as a person, no matter what, you know what's right for you. Okay, there is no definite right or wrong, Terry. It's what's right for you. Everything is relative based on what you're doing. It talked about as an example, it said, employers don't judge themselves by what the company requests or what they know they're capable of. It is given an example, but they are by what their fellow employees are doing. You guys ever work for a company and you have people all around you? You feel like you're doing your job, and then you feel like they're not doing theirs? Right? He was talking about this in relativism. Basically, I'll give you a prime example. The company I work for, Charlie and I were just talking about it. I had several employees that worked for me. It was a job where they were paid by the hour to do basically whatever we wanted. The problem I had within the company with the employees was the fact that some basically said, well, Joe over here is not doing anything, so I'm not going to do anything today. Or I'm going to do just slightly more than Joe did, so I feel good about what I did. You know, I was outside sales, okay? I drove around all day long. In that, everybody figured I did nothing. They didn't see me at the store, right? And so we didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. That's kind of how they did. And we as a humans, that's just kind of human nature, right? We judge our own conscience, or we rationalize our own conscience by what we see others do. Okay? That theory, that concept right there. I'm going to get back where I was going here. I told you I'll get on random thoughts, so you're going to have to bear with me a second. Our honesty, when we're talking about what way we judge and how we do it as a human, is too often a subjective comparison, and it eases our conscience whenever we're able to look at somebody else and say, well, I'm better than that person. When we talk about having to have standards, if we don't do this, it is very easy for us to fall into this category of nothing but comparison, right? But in the end, we have to have a set standard. Go ahead.
Two things. First of all, that you watch the news tonight, there's now a picture of a black hole, which relativity predicts.
Mm-hmm.
That nobody had ever seen before. So the scientific world's pretty excited. Relativity, I think of the verse in Proverbs.
Mm-hmm.
This person is it's written by Agur, son of Jacob, starting chapter 30, starting with verse 7. He says, "Two things I ask of you, deny them not to me before I die. Remove far from me falsehood and lying. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food that is needful for me, lest I be full and deny you, and say, who
Okay, well, let's just talk about that a second. That very type of situation. Is it okay in that situation? I mean, if you think about it.
But we appreciate it more if a person's stealing to feed his family, right?
Why is that? Is it still wrong?
It's still wrong, but and justifiable homicide.
Yeah. There's that thing.
That's in our legal system.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of that is in our thinking.
But who comes up with that?
Yeah, we do.
We do.
And of course, the trouble with sinful man is we try to justify what we do to be what God wants us to do, and then we're okay because it's compatible.
Mm-hmm.
But if God says don't do it, we do it anyway, it's sin.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always trying to get away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Some argument or some scheme that makes God a liar.
Yeah.
I want to play the other side of that. Alan's talking about things we'll try to justify because that's what, it provides the means to something that we're supposed to do as Christians. Well, the other side of that is, when you look in Colossians chapter 3, starting in verse 22, slaves obey their earthly masters in everything and do it not only when their eye is on you, but to win their favor, but with sincerity of heart and reverence for the Lord. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for men. Since you know that you will receive inheritance from the Lord as reward, it is the Lord, Christ, you are serving. Anyone who does wrong will be repaid for his wrong, and there is no favoritism. So we try to justify things, like you said, situational ethics. Well, this is favorable for me. This is an easy way out for me, so I want to do whatever it takes to accomplish this. And on the other side, when it comes down to like the employees you were talking about, that's not favorable for me. So even though that's scriptural, even though that is what's right, we try to bend and get back into that situational ethic that you're talking about.
Yeah, I guess what I'm hitting at is the fact that it's human nature, though, for us to rationalize in our own mind to make what we think we're doing is okay, right? I mean, absolutely. When I think about Whit Owen out there playing wiffle ball, there is no doubt in Owen's mind that because he is younger, he deserves more breaks. Can you imagine the Razorbacks every year? Well, we've just got all freshmen, so we need more timeouts, and if we could get some more free throws, that'd be great. Can you imagine? Like I said, if the whole world worked that way, things would be, you wouldn't be able to deal with it. You absolutely wouldn't be able to deal with it. Go ahead, Charlie.
But the world does work that way a little bit, I think. And I'm a little bit lost here, so.
So am I, Charlie. We're in the same boat.
You leave me for a loop. You're talking about Einstein. I hate to do he was.
I told you I had a book, Charlie.
For instance, well, culture's got to be a factor in. Whenever you're talking about ethics of right and wrong and what have you, culture homes right and wrong. That's just a win of the cause. Example: Central America, Honduras, in the bush. We had to, even in the church group setting. I mean, it's in good people setting. It's not thieves.
Mhm.
But stealing is not stealing because of their culture. If it's laying there and nobody has it, it's not stealing. They seen it as available. So we have to deal with the culture issue there. Try to come across the discussion of stealing comes up, but really they had no concept of what stealing really was.
Well, in their communities, does everything belong to everybody?
Yes, it does. It really did.
Okay. Well, if it does, then it's.
We really couldn't understand that.
Yeah. Well, we can't understand that, but.
So I'm sitting there thinking about your conscience and your ethics. So where are you going? Where do you go with that? And the honing of your conscience. So truthfully, to become a Christian, your ethics are polarized to the north or towards Jesus. So it's ever changing to come back to center toward that needle. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm still confused a little bit.
Well, We were going to talk about how culture can affect our ethics.
The situation of relativism is that most, or many people would say there is no absolute truth in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That there is no standard to go by. So why can't, we just agree on what the standard is? And of course, when you say there's no absolute truth and we're just going to agree on the standard, it's easier to change that standard for situations. And that's kind of what we see, where we had the former governor and former President Clinton saying, well, testifying, well, how do you define is?
Mm-hmm.
To try to defend himself in a silly situation.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's a difficulty for Christians, is we do believe in absolute standard, but many in the world don't.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they say they do, they don't
Sure.
really believe it.
Well, and there's too many that don't believe. You've ever heard the term, "Well, this is my truth." That's, to me, that's one of the biggest farces going. I mean, it just, and I agree wholeheartedly. That's the way we operate, because, I mean, the world itself is never going to agree on everything. That's why we have all these different churches around here. You get 5 people in the car to go to the movies, and not everybody wants to go see the same thing. Not everybody wants to go eat at the same place. Well, now we've got millions of people trying to decide on what's the absolute truth. And we can't do it.
But the truth doesn't change, really.
Well, it doesn't for you. Why doesn't the truth change for you?
God is our truth. The Bible is our truth.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't change. Even the Pharisees in Matthew 19:3 tried to get Jesus to have a discussion about divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And he went on to explain to him that, that it was only through the hardness of their hearts that Moses permitted. He never said divorce was permitted.
Mm-hmm.
Now they had divorce, but he never said it was really right.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you try to tell me that there's not a truth,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, here's a person that's trying to convince me that they're a me person and I'm the most important person around.
Well, that's basically what relativism is. It's a very self-centered. It's decided on the emotion that you have regarding the situation that you're in. It benefits you as the individual only versus the group as a whole. Now, it's easy for you to say there is an absolute truth. Why? Because you believe in God and you believe in the Bible.
Well, the whole basis of the U.S. law is based on the Judeo-Christian norm.
Yeah, but not everybody believes that today, Lynn. They'll tell you no.
That's right, but the whole system is based on that here in this country.
Absolutely.
You go to the Far East, it's okay, you have people there teaching their kids, it's okay to lie, do and steal. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
to lie, get yourself ahead. And things like that is totally different than our culture, and our whole thing has nothing to do with any kind of standard or anything else, or any kind of relativism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, culture, Charles Ryan, culture has a whole lot to do with the ethics you learn as a child, even the region of this country.
Yeah. Now, before we tar and feather me and take me out of here on a pole, I want y'all to understand that I believe in an absolute truth. I'm not up here trying to teach that I believe in relativism and that everything is subjective. But, as Charlie said, culture does dictate. When you think about the culture in America and you think about the truth there, think about how has it affected relative truth or ethics, how has it affected our country? You have rampant divorce. You have socially acceptable adultery and fornication, socially accepted homosexuality. It goes on and on.
Absolute truth is not politically correct, right?
Absolutely not.
I mean, you can't even say it without going to jail.
Absolutely not. It is amazing, even in our local elections, You know, we had the vote here a few years ago on the gay rights bill, I think is basically one way to sum it up. And the mayor actually got on the radio and was so disappointed in Fayetteville that we took this non-progressive stance and would not vote that in, and basically condemned the people of Fayetteville because it didn't pass, and how closed-minded we were. But this theory has changed our culture so much that it's tossed the Bible out. You know, the Bible, we can't use that, because you know what? That's your truth. That's what you believe. But I don't have to believe that. So it's tossed it out. It has made it irrelevant. My boys go to Fayetteville High School. Well, my oldest one goes to Fayetteville High School. He's ridiculed on a daily basis almost for what he believes. Whether it be politically or religiously, it doesn't make any difference. He's ridiculed all the time. Now, Whit's a very strong-willed person, and you would never have to worry about that kid. He doesn't care what they think. He rarely cares what I think, so he's not going to care what some other 16-year-old kid thinks. So, you know, but that's what our country has gone, and that's what it's done to us. This theory of everything's okay for you. You know, that's where we get this concept. If it feels good, do it, because that's right for you. And that's how it's negatively affected our country. I saw you raising your hand back there, did you?
Well, I think it's interesting that we take theory and make it fact. And when I was in school, and I know that's been a very long time, scientific theory was theory, and the scientist's job was to set about to try to prove that theory. Well, there are a lot of theories out there that have not been proven that all of a sudden become fact.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of bad science out there.
Absolutely. I thought it was interesting when you talk about that, the fact that we have this theoretical physicist, Einstein, who was trying to be forced into saying that his was a concept of reality for people when it had absolutely nothing to do with it. But if you go to the schools today, you know, you're absolutely right. It's forced down the children's throats by some, not all teachers. We have great teachers. We have some bad teachers, you know. But it is something that is, as you say, taught in schools as truth versus theory. And that's one of the things it talks about. It's how the culture has been affected and how all of that has gone on. The thing that we need to hold truth, if we as a Christian society are going to survive, like I say, it's no longer the 10 Commandments, it's the 10 Suggestions is what they call it now. You know, if we as a Christian society are going to not get lost in this idea of relative ethics and situational ethics and everything like that, it's a matter of us always taking a stand. It's a matter of us always doing what's right. It's a matter of us always being the example of what the standard is. Where we get caught in comparing ourselves to, well, I'm not that guy. You know, I come 3 out of 4 Sundays, or I'm here every Sunday morning. I may not be here every Wednesday night, but I'm here on Sunday morning. That's when they do the communion. And, well, that's the important service to be at. You know, we do these things in our minds to ease our own conscience. But the fact of the matter is that there is an absolute right and wrong. God tells us that. There is an absolute right and wrong. And dishonesty is dishonesty, no matter how we shed the light on it. You know, if you think you pay too much in taxes, and you think you're going to get them back by cheating on your taxes, you may get the government back, but God still sees you. And that's still dishonest. You will be judged on that. It said, all dishonesty and immoral behavior is wrong. Be upright in the light and in the dark to be right. I think that's Matthew 6:1. That's where that was. No matter what, you're called on to do what's right. I think about, it says, whether you're in the light or in the dark. And I think about Jack's story about, talking about somebody's always watching you. I can, my kids tell off on me all the time, And my wife for years had been saying, don't tell that story. The boys are going to hear that and they're going to tell somebody, or something like that. Not necessarily that I did anything bad, but, anyways. I was reminded tonight, I went to go pick Whit up from batting practice. Bo Stuckey's in there. He's hitting with him and everything like that. And Bo comes up and he says, hey, tell me about the time you did. So what are you talking about? Because Whit was in here telling stories about you doing this or doing that. And I'm looking at Whit like, what other stories have you told? But my wife always says it's my fault because I tell too many stories. So, or the situation doesn't matter. And we handle ourselves in such a way that other people see us, but they don't just see us. They see the church. And I know we hear this all the time, that you are representing this church, but that is one of the truest things that is told. You are the church. And how you deal with those certain situations and how you react to these certain things is what other people see as the church. And when people say that they have a problem with the church, they have a problem with the people of the church, that means they have a problem with us. And we have to look at ourselves and decide, why is that? What have we done? What are we doing in our lives? What are we doing in that situation that causes them to think, I don't want to be a part of that group of people? But it happens all the time. Yes, ma'am.
I think sometimes in our fervor for the truth that we're not always kind and thoughtful in our delivery of the truth. And
Absolutely.
That gets us into trouble. We need to. I mean, if we're going to teach, we need to do it with love and kindness and without a judgmental type of attitude. And I think that's what's gotten us in trouble in the past.
I agree. It's easy for us to, let's say, get blindsided or knocked back on our heels a little bit by something somebody may say to us or ask us, and all of a sudden we go into defensive mode. And there again, when you're in defensive mode, you probably don't deliver too much with love. And that's not exactly, nobody likes to hear, you're going to see it my way or you're going to hell. I mean, because sometimes that's how it comes out. Oh yeah, you can do it that way, but good luck. We don't try to teach, we don't try to nurture, we don't try to do anything. We just try to say, you're wrong. Davenports love to argue. If you ever come to one of our anythings, some of us do it just for fun. My oldest brother can argue like nobody's business. And when he and my dad get together, they like to argue so much, they switch sides of the argument throughout the argument, and neither one of them know where they're at. But we do it for fun. And it can get spiteful. And unfortunately, sometimes as Christians, that's how we do things. We do that. Somebody had their hand up.
Yeah,
Charlie.
talks long, I forgot what I was going to say.
Sure. Hey, I'm just trying to make it to that second bell, Charlie. That's all I'm doing right now.
I want to help you out, Greg.
All right.
All right, I like the way Peter, to me, kind of sums this up. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. But in your hearts set apart Christ as Lord. So there's three things in this one verse. The first thing is set apart Christ as Lord, which means to make him number one in your life. He's above all people and all things. So there's your standard.
Yep.
The second thing in this verse, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks. You just give the reason for the hope that you have. Well, if you're prepared ahead of time, it'll be easy for you. And then finally, in the same verse, it says, but do this with gentleness and respect, which is what Melody was talking about.
Absolutely.
And you put those three things together, and that eliminates all these
And the one thing else I'll add to that before we close is to remember that no matter who you're dealing with and who you're talking about it, we're all sinners. We're all sinners. You're a sinner just as much as they are, and we can't get caught up in comparing ourselves to saying, well, at least I go to church. We're all sinners. And we all need that reconciliation, and we all need that faithfulness, and we all need to be cleansed by the righteousness. And if we all remember that God is the moral compass, and that's the direction we all want to go, then we can stay on that line and we can.
I remember what I was going to ask you.
Go ahead.
If you want a really neat little thing to play with sometime, and we did it as a group one time, but is to talk to people about Jesus. But the rules of the game is you can't tell them where you go to church, and you can't invite them to church at that moment, okay? But your objective is to have a conversation about Jesus from pure and simple. And try that sometime, because you'll find yourself, as I did, I think I invited them to church on about the second sentence.
Well, I'll tell you what, some of the best conversations I've ever had is with my best friend who does not believe the way I believe. He's grown up what I would call a religious mutt, okay? He grew up in the Assembly of God church. He went to a Church of Christ school, and now he's in Baptist. One of the most confused religiously person I've ever met in my life. And the thing about it is he took something from everything. The most proud I've been of him was when he was baptized, and he was baptized at 38 years old. When he was a Baptist, they said they wanted to baptize him into the Baptist church, and he said, no, I want to be baptized into God's church. He goes, I'm not baptized into the Baptist church. He goes, I know that much. I want to be baptized into God's church. And, you know, that's a great moment, but you're absolutely right. Having those conversations can be tough, but they're good. Thank you guys for helping me get through this. Great discussion.
Good evening. It's about time for us to begin. I see we have some young men. They're going to be passing out attendance cards. If you'll grab one, fill it out. Pass it to an aisle nearby you, and they'll get it here in just a minute. Tonight, Chad is going to be leading us in our song service. Ryan Russell will be wording the first prayer. Craig will be doing the devotional. And then Todd Holland will close us out in prayer. Keep Trey Schaffner in our prayers as he's recovering from his surgery. And pray that that recovery is shorter than what may be expected. Also, Gail Ingalls, former member here of this congregation, had surgery Monday. And she had some real serious complications. And the last we heard, she was in ICU, but was hoping to go to an upgraded regular room soon. Men's breakfast is this Saturday morning, the 13th. It'll be 8 o'clock down in the fellowship hall. All men are invited, as well as boys. Four-year team members. If you're on the four-year team or a four-year team, there's going to be some training immediately following the men's breakfast Saturday. So see Jason or Mark Skates for details. The Prairie Grove Church of Christ is going to have a Ladies' Day. That's going to be this Saturday, the 13th, from 9 to 3. There are details on the bulletin board. And on Sunday, the 14th, this Sunday, we'll have the leaderette tea. So all ladies are invited. Please bring a finger food to share. And that will be at 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. And then Sunday night, on this Sunday, the young men will lead our worship service, those that are involved in the Last Leader program. And you're invited to stay after service this Sunday evening and watch some of the mass media and puppet skit presentations. For our youth group, Just Chill will be next Wednesday at 6:15. The ARC retreat is going to be on April 26th through the 28th. Cost of the ARC retreat is $20 per person. And also the senior banquet will take place following morning services on May the 5th, and more details will come out very soon. Are there any announcements that we've overlooked? Yes, Saturday morning men's breakfast. Yeah, 8 o'clock. All right. All right, no further announcements. Chad?
Number 517. This will be our song of encouragement following our devotional thought this evening, number 517. If you would go ahead and mark that. And then turn to number 531. Please stand as we sing. 531.
Hallelujah. Will you bow with me, please? Our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this day that you've given us. We thank you for the opportunity to come here midweek and refocus, and we just thank you so much for the opportunity that we have to be here and worship freely, Father. Father, be with all of those that are recovering right now from surgeries, and especially be with Trey, and we pray that his arm heals quickly. Be with Georgia Reading and the others that are having health struggles, Father, and be with the Spurlock family and Frank's family, and just we just pray that you be with them right now, and be with us as we go throughout the rest of this service, Father, and we pray that it's uplifting to you, and we just thank you so much for everything that you do for us, Father. We know we fall short, and we pray that we'll do the best we can each and every day to honor you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, I wanted to mention we're going to have a men's breakfast this coming Saturday morning. Okay. Okay. John Vaughn, okay, so all seriousness, John Vaughn will be, if you guys hadn't been there, it's a great, all you men, boys, it's worth coming. And John Vaughn will be giving the devotional thought, great time of fellowship. Unfortunately, my son and I, and possibly my wife, will be in Little Rock this weekend, so, or at least Friday and Saturday. So, but if you guys hadn't been there, you men, you guys, you know, you don't even gotta comb your hair. Just put a baseball cap on and come up, and it's a good time. It's really a good time of fellowship. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of the book called Bounce. It's a book written by a man named Matthew Syed. The book was given to Zeke as a senior basketball player gift from the basketball coach when he graduated. The coach gave all the boys that book to read. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of the book, but it's written, like I said, Matthew Syed. He was the #1 tennis player in Britain in 1995 at the age of 24 years old. And he talks a lot about in that book about the circumstances that led him to become that #1 ping pong player. He was in the Olympics, I think, 2 times or 3 times. But I won't get into all the specifics about the book, but one interesting thing in the book that really stands out to me, there was a study done in 1991, and he uses this in his book, done by a psychologist at Florida State University, and they studied 3 groups of violin students. These were late teens, early 20s. There was 3 groups of violin students studied. The first group were the outstanding, elite, top of their game violinists. These were the ones that were going to go on, no doubt in the teacher's minds, the instructor's minds, that they were going to be the world-class soloists for the violin, world acclaimed. The second group that was studied was the extremely good group. These were the ones that were pretty good. They were real good. They just weren't great. And they were kind of projected to be the ones that were going to be playing in world-class orchestras, but they just weren't going to be the very, very best. And then the third group of violinists that they were studying was the ones that were just kind of the least talented, the least abled. These were the ones that were studying music, and they already kind of, the instructor said, they were never going to make it big, but they were going to be, they're going to be music teachers. They were going to go into the musical field. And so you had these 3 different groups of violinists. And but what happened was that what they found out was in all these 3 groups, it turned out that every one of their backgrounds was extremely similar. And they came from extremely similar circumstances. For example, basically all of them started taking lessons at about the age of 8. They started playing the violin. All of them started about age 8. Another thing they all had in common was about the age of 14 or 15, that's when they all decided, I want to be a professional musician. That's kind of when it clicked and they said, that's what I want to do. I want to be a musician. Another thing they had in common was they all had an average of 4 teachers that had taught them over the course of their musical career. And another thing they had in common was they all had played the same number of instruments. They all averaged playing like 1.8 instruments other than the violin, whatever 0.8 of an instrument is. So these guys were all very similar, these men and women, very similar. But the one glaring thing about this whole study, the one glaring difference was in the amount of practice time that these individuals had put in. Okay? These top elite individuals had all practiced around 10,000 hours leading up to that point in the study. The middle group, the pretty good ones, had practiced somewhere around 8,000 hours. And then the lower tier group had practiced somewhere around 4,000 hours. And there was no exception. If you had practiced 10,000 hours, you were in that top group. You weren't down in the lower group. It was automatic. Nobody who worked 10,000 hours did not make that good group. They all made it if they had done it. And anybody who had not done the 10,000 hours did not make it. And so the point he's talking about is talent and how, talent versus work and all that, nature versus nurture. Well, they concluded this by saying, we argue that the differences between expert performers and normal adults reflect a lifelong persistence of deliberate effort to improve performance. Lifelong persistence of deliberate effort to be the best. So what does that have to do with tonight's lesson? Well, as I was thinking about a topic, and this came to my mind, I want to give you, if you got a pencil and you want to write these numbers down, you don't have to write it down. You can calculate it. Alan, please don't check my math out on this, but I've done the math for you tonight, okay? But if you want to write these numbers down, I think you'll find something interesting. Okay, so if you were to attend worship services 1 hour a week, from the time you were born till the age of 20, you would have spent 1,040 hours in worship, in Bible study, in praise. 1,040 hours. This same 20-year-old that attended services on Sunday morning Bible class, Sunday morning worship, Wednesday night worship, Sunday night worship, this same 20-year-old person goes from 1,040 hours to 4,160 hours. Didn't take much to figure that out, did it? Multiply the first number by 4. Okay? 3,000 hours difference by the time you're 20. Okay, now these guys say you're an expert after 10,000 hours in the sport, in your field, in your music. Okay? I doubt many of us in here would say a 20-year-old Christian is a really, really, really strong, mature, seasoned Christian. We probably wouldn't normally say that, but we would probably all have to agree that if they've spent 4,000 hours sitting in the pews, they're probably a little stronger than the one that spent 1,000 hours. I mean, I think that's common sense. Okay, 30-year-old. Okay, you go to Sunday morning Bible class, Sunday morning worship. You're a Sunday-only person, Sunday morning only. You go to class, get up early, go to class, go to worship. By the time you're 30, 3,000 hours. Okay? So that 20-year-old has spent 1,000 more hours than you have in their 10 less years on the earth because they've attended more. Okay? If you're 30 and you've gone every time the doors are open, it'd be 6,240 by the time you're 30 years old. Now we're getting up closer to that 10,000 mark. And that, again, that's just for application. And so you can do the math. 50-year-old, Sunday morning and Sunday night, no Wednesday night. By the time you're 50, 7,800. You go to all of them, by the time you're 50, which is where I'm getting close here, not the going part, but the age part, 10,400. 10,400 hours in worship. So what's the point? How do we increase our faith? Romans 10:17 says, faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God. When we're in attendance at a Bible study, at a worship, at a Sunday evening Bible study, for a sermon, where obviously we are hearing the Word of God. We better be hearing the Word of God, or we need to find a different preacher and different teachers. So when we're here, we're hearing the Word of God. That's how our faith grows. However, just attending doesn't guarantee you to be a faithful Christian. We understand that. Just coming and sitting in the pews doesn't make you automatically faithful. No more than if you're the football team that practices the most, it doesn't guarantee you're going to win the Super Bowl. It just increases the odds, okay? Because there's other factors that take place, aren't there? So you're not guaranteed that you're going to be the strongest, most faithful Christian there ever was because you spent more time in the pews at all. But it does help your chances. Another reason it doesn't guarantee it is because of the factor of Satan. We have to stay ready. 1 Peter 5:8 says, "Be on the alert, your adversary, the devil, roars about like a prowling lion, seeking whom he can devour." Okay, so just showing up's not enough. We have to be on the alert at all times. And then the book talks about purposeful practice. And that's the last thing I want to talk about. If you just show up to basketball practice and ignore the coach and go through the motions on the drills, you're not going to be a very good basketball player, okay? You think you got a better idea than the coach, you're probably not going to be all that successful. If you show up in the weight room and you cheat on the amount of reps that you do, guys, or you cheat on the amount of the weight that you put on, you're not going to see the gains that you're supposed to see. The same thing is just showing up to worship does not say anything. We got to be purposeful. When we come in here, we want to be focused. We want to listen. When we sing, we want to sing with the Spirit and with the understanding. When we pray with the Spirit and pray with the understanding. And when we do those things, our faith will grow. And then when we get out into the world where it's so much harder, then the odds go way up for us as Christians, because we're in a battle, we're in a war. We're fighting the second most powerful individual in the universe, Satan. And none of us can do that alone. Ephesians chapter 6 says, "Put on the full armor of God that you may be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore take up the full armor of God, that you may be able to resist in the evil day, and having done everything to stand firm. Stand firm, therefore, having girded your loins with truth." Talked about truth tonight in our Bible class. "Girded your loins with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. In addition to all, taking up the shield of faith, with which you will be able to extinguish all the flaming missiles of the evil one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God." When we come in to our worship service, to our Bible classes, we're trying to sharpen these tools. We're trying to get these tools, get better at training and using these tools in this spiritual battle that we're fighting. And that's how it starts. That's not enough, obviously. We have to put it into practice. I didn't talk about lads leaders. I didn't talk about if you add 1 hour of Bible study a week to your home, the number of hours you would have in the Word of God. You can do the math for yourself. It's not hard math. But the point is, we have an opportunity to continue to grow in our faith if we will do it purposefully and with a full heart. If you're here this evening, you're not a Christian, you can't win this battle. Satan has got you beat until you accept Jesus Christ and obey the gospel and are baptized for the forgiveness of your sins. Then you get the gift of the Holy Spirit. Then you will have the power to defeat the evil one. But without the Spirit, you'll never win. And we know that. That's what the Bible teaches. That's the truth. If you're not a Christian, need to respond. I want you to do that now as we stand, as we sing.
Oh, do not let the word depart, and Poor sinner, harden not thy heart. Be saved, oh, tonight. Oh, why not tonight? Oh, why not tonight? Wilt thou be saved? Then why not tonight? Tomorrow's sun may never rise to bless thy long deluded sight. This is the time, oh then be wise, be saved, oh tonight. Oh, why not tonight? Oh, why not tonight? Wilt thou be saved? Then why not tonight? Our blessed Lord refuses none who would to him their souls unite. Believe, obey, the work is done. Be saved, oh, tonight. Oh, why not tonight? Oh, why not tonight? Wilt thou be saved? Then why not tonight? Any other announcements? If not, turn to number 302. We'll sing the first verse and then be led in our closing prayer. Number 302. I want to be a soul winner for Jesus every day. He does so much for me. I want to aid the lost sinner to leave his erring way and be from bondage free. A soul winner for Jesus. A soul winner for Jesus. Oh, let me be each day a soul winner for Jesus. A soul winner for Jesus. He's done so much for me.
For this time to be together, Father. Thank you for this opportunity to get in your word and study your word and sing songs of praise and encourage one another. Father, we continue to pray for those that have been mentioned. Pray for healing, Father, for Trey and Gail Ingalls. Father, continue to be with those that have lost loved ones recently, with the Stevens family and the Spurlock family. Father, help us be the people that you want us to be on this earth. Father, I pray that you would give us strength to stand firm against the devil's schemes, and to always be working towards being better servants of yours and better examples to those around us. Help us, Father, to encourage those that we come in contact with every day. Thank you most of all for your Son and the sacrifice that he made for us and the hope of his grace, Father. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Make your confession. Believe that Jesus Christ is God. Based on that confession, I'm going to baptize you, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, for remission.
So much for Tucker, and we're so thankful, Father, for Ryan, Kelly, and their family. Thank you, Father, so much for the example, the teaching that they provided the children, and Father, we're so thankful that we have another brother in Christ, Lincoln Tucker, and we just thank you so much for his decision. Father, we pray that you will help him to grow in his faith, his knowledge of you and your will for his life. And we pray, Father, that you will be with all of us as a family, that we will help him and inspire him, and that he will inspire us. Father, give him strength and help him to always do his best to be equipped in the spiritual battle. And Father, we just thank you so much for Jesus and his death on the cross.